Hey, my bookish friends, welcome to the Leaf Sonata. I'm your host, Marquita. If you are new here, welcome. If you are returning, thank you so much. I had posted on my shorts that I was reading, and I actually finished it in a day, Damsel by Evelyn Skye. So, I'm going to do this video in two parts. The first part is going to be no spoilers, very basic, quick to the point. And then the second part is I'm going to spoil everything about this book. So I'm going to leave a timestamp below to let you know when I'm going to start spoiling it because I loved it and we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it. I am not seeing enough on BookTube of those who have read, and I don't know why, Damsel by Evelyn Skye. It is an adult book, but it reads like a new, what is it, new adult? Not quite YA, because sometimes YA can almost read like middle grade, so I can't say that, but it is an adult book. It has some doesn't have really adult content, but it does make mention of adult activity. I'll put it like that. It does make mention of adult activity and freedoms. I'll put it like that. But this book is definitely like YA. So with that being said, I have finished Damsel, and the no spoiler section is about to begin. So, if you have seen the Netflix book, if you have seen the Netflix movie, the book adds on to what you've seen in the movie because the book is actually an adaptation from the movie. I hope I'm not using this wrong. The book is an adaptation from the movie, right? But Evelyn Skye added added more fantasy elements. It is still very low fantasy, more magical realism than any high fantasy, which I don't go for. I'm just not into high fantasy. Even some low fantasies, I'm just not. But this was just the perfect amount to keep kind of a historical realism to it as well. So if you have not heard of the Netflix original film Damsel and you want to read this book, don't read the back. Don't read the back if you have not seen the movie at all. But I can say, without spoiling anything, that it is a book about a young, I guess you could say maiden, but a young woman whose father is an aristocrat because he's not really a king. He's more like a duke, even though he's the duke of the land, like the only one. And they are in a impoverished village land, and he makes a deal with a faraway land that's very affluent and everything's opulent. They have everything, just very prosperous, to marry his daughter to their prince because they need a princess in order to keep the lineage going. And so she agrees out of duty for her people for this exchange because her people will prosper if she does so. So what she does not know that they're called the Aryans, or the land of Arya. The Aryans have a ritual wherein they offer the princesses to a dragon. Yes, they offer. Well, I was gonna say annually. They offer the princess to the dragon, and this is a ritual that they've done for centuries. Okay, she does not know about that, and yes, I can say that. And even her father does not even believe that the dragon exists. In the book, we're talking about the book. And so she goes along with all the rituals thinking that her people will profit from it. And even though her sacrifice of leaving her family is great, to find out that she is going to be the sacrifice for a dragon. And then she goes on to fight for her life to survive. Now, in the book, she seems just like, a typical soon-to-be princess. That's pretty witty. That's how she's portrayed in the book, but in the movie. But she's so much more than that. So much more than that. in the book. So don't read the back if you have not read the movie. If you have read the movie, just know that there are extra fantastical elements that have been added. Um, I don't want to spoil anything, but I think it won't spoil it too much to say one of those things is that, and I'll share it with you if you decide to pick up the book, is that the dragon actually speaks its own language, and it's called Cavis Ventvits. Cavis Ventus. Okay, so in the very back, there's an appendix where you can translate what is being said until like any language, you hear it enough, you start to recognize it. But that is one fantastical element. Another one that's not in the movie Another one, it's not in a movie. It's what's called a blood memory. It's very similar to dream fasting from the Dark Crystal. If you've ever watched the Dark Crystal, when the Gelflings touch, they instantly see their previous memories of that person, of their life and their upbringing and their thoughts and moments of joy and things like that. So that's the other fantastical element that's a bit similar. And I don't think none of those things are giving too much away. Now, it's time for spoilers, okay? This book impressed me so much. One, I don't read fantasy. I don't enjoy fantasy. I enjoy science fiction. But this was just the right amount of magical realism for me to be comfortable and to get me excited about it. So, I hate to say what's not in a movie, what's not in a book. I mean, what's not in a movie, but it's in the book is the book makes the movie make sense. So I mentioned that there's a dream fasting type of situation. So there's so much difference. So the book starts out, you get to know who Elodie is. Elodie has a little sister who's Floria. She has a stepmother that's really stern, real strict. She actually used to be her governess. And when Elodie's mother passed away, the governess became her new mother. And she just kind of never left that teacher type of, persona behind, being very critical. Oh, sorry, something popped up on the phone. Just being very critical, which kind of pushed the girls away from her. And also, too, in the book, her dad doesn't make the best decisions. And also, her dad in the book didn't really actually believe that there was a dragon that would kill his daughter. So that's why he was so willing to send her off to this land and make this exchange. Her dad didn't realize that she was actually going to be a human sacrifice until right before she was thrown in. And he does try to redeem himself and go out, similar to the movie, and save her, only to be destroyed in the end. But when Elodie goes to this land, which I appreciate about the book because I had not seen the movie yet, is I'm going to put it down, is that the wedding takes place at night. The wedding takes place at night. And then she goes during these processions, everyone's, talking and drinking and dancing. And then the queen comes out after the wedding, takes her down into a dungeon. And then the ritual actually begins, where there's a group of women who dress her in herbs and paints, and it's all these things to make her, she smells amazing and feel good. And they say chant certain things, but it's in the dragon language that she's not familiar with. And so it has that really eerie kind of gothic is it called macabre or macabre? I forget how to pronounce that type of feel to it. It's like it gives you that whole Shakespearean, type of feel and vibe, like Hamlet in a way. And so she says, oh, to herself, well, I guess this is just part of what the rituals are like, still not knowing that she's about to be sacrificed to this dragon. Now, what I like about the book too is, up to this point, you get to know who she is. She rides horses. She climbs trees. She draws mazes, which is very important that she does, because the cave that she's going to be thrown into, it's a maze of sorts, and she has to remember how to get back into different places to try to escape the dragon. And ultimately, she is going to escape the dragon, but at a very high cost. So, in the book, she is thrown in against her will. She, in the movie, it looks as though she's completely clueless, but by that point in the book, she knows something is wrong and she doesn't want to go ahead with it. She speaks up for herself. And unfortunately, the prince, pushes her into the gorge, and then the dragon comes, but she's able to hide from the dragon. And in doing so, she sees the remnants, unfortunately, that's the nicest way I can put it, of the princesses that were left behind. Crowns, maybe a speckle of blood here and there. And when she touches the blood, she has access to the memories of that time. And so in 800 centuries, there have been 3 girls sacrificed every single year. You do the math. You do the math. And only a few of them made it as far as to the caves that she was able to find. And they would leave her messages and clues, tips of how to get out, or how to stay safe as long as possible. Another thing, I really enjoyed the dragon language. I thought that was so cool. But another thing that I appreciated is that the dragon has a backstory. And the dragon and her, they do form a relationship like you kind of see in the movie, but it's a lot different. The dragon's story is so sad, like it is in the movie, but it's a little different because in the book, the dragon is actually the descendant of the original dragon that was had the first encounter with humans. And what happened actually is that in the very beginning, when the first settlers came to this island, because they're on an island, they just immediately went on to attack this dragon instead of seeing if they could talk to it, and work things out so that they can have like a symbiotic relationship on this island. And so the dragon went into full attack mode. One of the princesses said, please, don't destroy my people. We'll do anything. And the dragon was like, well, you got to sacrifice your royalty. He'd gotten a taste of some of the soldiers, and I want to eat some royalty. And so the 3 young princesses went into the cave thinking that they could trick the dragon and poison the dragon, but can never find the water source. So unfortunately, they didn't survive. And the last attempt to save the people, the oldest of the sisters that made the deal with this dragon, drank the poison so that when the dragon ate her and gave a portion of it to her youngling, the youngling got sick and was not able to conceive, is my understanding, and the mother passed away. And so no one knew that side of it, but the ritual continued. So in the movie, the mother's children were killed. They killed her. But that's not what happens in the book. The baby dragon doesn't even conceive. And so Elodie, being as witty as she is, she's physically strong, she's highly intelligent, ingenuitive. She starts to build in a way, not truly a relationship with the dragon, but to talk to it enough to try to pull these things out, and also having the ability to dream fast, where she will touch a spot where it's like blood left over, can access those memories. We're able to put together what exactly happened. Now, the really cool part that's so different from the movie is how the dragon and Elodie united. Have I ever seen anything like this? It blew my mind. So, or read anything. I know I've never read anything like this. So, in the final duel between Cavis, which is, it means dragon, it's not her name, between Cavis and Elodie, their blood mixes together. Here's the fantasy element. Their blood mixes together. Now, previous to this, there are glowworms, we'll call them glowworms, in the cage that have medicinal properties. And so, just by happenstance, if you bleed, or when Elodie would bleed, the glowworms would find themselves, attach themselves, and she would see, even though she was grossed out at first, that her everything was renewed. And so before the final fight with the dragon, Elodie knew they were both gonna die. She had intaken, like she swallowed some of the glowworms, because in hopes that they might save her life, from the inside out, repair stuff and come out. And at the same time, she was also trying to save her sister. This is so wild. There's so much going on. But in that last fight, because I really just want to talk about the fantastic elements that make it a real fantasy. She fights with a dragon. There's blood spilled. There's blood mixed, and Ellie comes out of that healed with part of this infusion with the dragon, so she in herself becomes this new dragon. And I also liked in the movie, in the book, that was different from the movie. In the book, everyone, all the royalty was wiped out. In the movie, the royalty was wiped out. The dragon just ended their lives. But in the book, they gave them an option. You can decide your fate. So to say and end your existence here, or you can leave and never come back. And I really liked that they were given a choices, because it was forgiveness was talked about, independence was talked about. This was very much a feminist book, and I say that to say, which is great, I did not like how the father was portrayed. That is the only thing that takes off like a half a star for me. The father was portrayed as just being kind of a fool. And I know sometimes that can be the situation, but for him to be the ruler of a kingdom, and his wife, before she passed away, was really behind it all, and the women of the land and the men just like kind of shucking and jiving and goofing off, but people are starving, and you're just leaving all of this up to the women to handle and deal and sort out. To me, that was a bit unrealistic. Because in circumstances like that, everybody's probably pulling together. So I wasn't feeling that element of it, but I enjoyed this book so much. I didn't realize there was fantasy out there for me. Because I don't like fantasy in general, like those epic. I love science fiction, but this is my first fantasy book that I just gobbled up and read it in one sitting. Like, I finished it that day. So I can't talk enough about it. I'm hoping more people will talk about this and share how awesome this book is. And I really like that it's an adult book, but it goes into YA. So to me, that makes it even more accessible. I enjoyed it. If you've read it, please share your thoughts of it in the comments below. I can't stop thinking about it and talking about it. And I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you again in the next one. Bye-bye.